Hello and welcome back to another video tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. Okay, so we're going to jump right in and get started modeling our buildings here. I'm going to select this one, move it out of the way, and let's start off with creating a cube. Create a simple cube, elongate it. I'm going to Control D and duplicate that one. I'm going to hide one of them. Actually, before I want to duplicate it, let me center it here in my 3D world. Choose my other building and move that out of the way a little bit more. Okay, now I'll duplicate it and hide one of them. And I'm going to expand this one just a tiny little bit. Okay, now this building is... Now, I want to reiterate, these buildings are not necessarily designed to be finished products, but rather they are just models that I created that incorporate several modeling techniques that were illustrated in the Sci-Fi images that I showed at the beginning of the first tutorial in this series. They are not necessarily designed to be finished products or even really aesthetically pleasing, although they don't look that bad. It's just to run through some various modeling techniques. So I want to start off with creating this split building, and I'm going to do so by coming up here to Vertex Modeling, Free Tessellate, and I'm going to come down to this third one, Tessellate by Slice. I'm going to hold down Shift and just click once, and that will create a nice slice right through the center of my object here. I'm going to select that face. I'm going to hold down Shift and hit the plus on the numeric side of my keypad, and I'm going to hit Delete, and that deletes half of my building. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to use Symmetry. I want to model I want to use the Symmetry modeling tool, which allows me to create one half of the building, and then by using this tool it will create the other half. So I'm going to come down to Free Tessellate, and I want to click on this first one here because it's the only one that will allow me to tessellate a polygon. The other ones force you to create a point from one edge to the other, but the Free Tessellate allows me the luxury of stopping in between and creating more edges. So I'll click here, come across, and ideally what I want are these lines to be horizontal, but since I'm only eyeballing it, I know they're not going to be, so I'll just try to do the best I can. And click there, and I'll spin around to the front and click here and click there, and every time I'm clicking I'm just creating a new point. Now you're probably wondering, why am I clicking just a little bit short of every edge that I come to on the corner of the building? I'll show you when we get further along in this. Okay. Because I want these lines to be horizontal, I'm going to have to manually move some points around. So I want this line to be horizontal across here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the horizontal value of where it lies on its axis, and it's at 2.108. I'll click on this one, and all I'll do is delete it, copy in the value from this Y coordinate, and I'll hit enter, and now both of these are at 2.108. That's that one and that's that one. So now I know those lines are horizontal. I'm going to click on this one, and I want 3.213, so I'll copy that number, click on that line, delete this, enter, delete this one, paste, and enter. So now I know these lines are horizontal. I'm going to pause it right here, and I'm just going to make sure all my lines are horizontal on the rest of my model. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've evened out all my lines. Now what I want to do is use the Symmetry tool and have Hexagon do half of the work for me. So click on Symmetry up here in the Vertex modeling, spin around to the back of my model. I'm going to click there, click Validate, and select these two pieces, and I've got a perfectly symmetrical model here. And I'm going to weld those two together. I'll come to Select Edges. I'm going to select that edge there. I'm going to loop it. Loops it all the way around. I'm going to hit the backspace key. I don't want to hit the delete. I want to hit the backspace key. Now I've got a nice symmetrical model. What I want to do now is select these front faces here and the sides and the back of only this top piece, because we're going to separate it, and I'm going to hit disassociate. And what disassociate allows me to do, it's not extract. It doesn't take one object and create two out of it. All it does is it takes the selected faces and it disassociates that geometry from the rest of the geometry of the object, which allows me to move it around anywhere I want on any axis that I wish. And that's a good offset. I'm happy with that. Now what I want to do is come up here to Surface Modeling and click on my Thickness tool. I'm going to click on Inside, and I'm going to give a little thickness to this on the inside. It doesn't need to be much. And I will validate that. I'm going to click on my Symmetry here and make sure X is enabled. Let me zoom in here and show you what I'm looking at. The distance here between, let me select these edges. The distance here between these edges is now no longer the distance between those edges. And that's just because we raised the top end up. So what I want to do is I'm going to make it even. So I'm going to select that face there, and with Symmetry, now all I need to do is just move it over like that, and it'll move the opposite side over as well. So what I'm going to do is select this face. Now it will move that bottom piece over, and at the same time move my top piece over. So let me zoom in here, and I'm just going to nudge it over a little bit till it looks like there's the same distance of offset all the way around, and that looks good. Now I'm going to come down here, select that face, hold down Shift, select that face, and the ones on the opposite side are also selected, so I'm just going to slide those over a little bit, and by golly, that looks pretty even. Let's see what we've got here. Here on the edges, the ends look, now I think this one is going to have to come over just a little bit. There we are. Open that up just a little bit more. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, now the reason why I created these points here just before the corner edges is because if we needed to move any of the points around that were near the edge, I found it throws off my corners. So by creating these little points here at the edge, it fixes the problem for me. It's kind of difficult to explain without demonstrating it, and the way I made my cuts across my model here in this particular modeling instance, I can't demonstrate it. So if you run into problems, and if you make yours similar to mine, when it comes to evening out your points, making sure they're all even, and if you run into problems, you may want to consider adding some points here just before your corner edges. Okay, so let's come back to our inner square or cube that we made, and I'm going to call this glass, and I will apply a black material to it. Because that will be our windows for this object. I'm going to come down here to wireframe, and this particular object that's going to be our glass, it only needs to cover this cracked area that we created, because that's all that's going to be visible, and it looks to be just a little bit wide, so I'll make it a little bit narrow, more narrow, and it's a little wide as well on this side. Okay, come back to smooth. Okay, so there is a nice cracked building. Now for the top, what I'm going to do is come over here to Vertex Modeling, Free Tessellate. I'm going to use this second one here. I'm going to hold down Shift and click and stretch across, and click again, hit Validate. Select edges, select that edge, move it forward, select faces, select that large face, and I'm just going to raise it up a little bit. That's fine. Now I'm going to create another cube, and just to quickly put it in place where it's manageable, I'm going to use my lay on tool. Now I've got it in front. What I want to do is just create buttresses with this object, and I'm just going to size it up here, and let me make it a little bit more narrow. Okay, I'm going to come back up to Tessellate, click on the second one here. I'm going to hold down Shift. I just want to make one cut all the way across. Click on that face right there, use my Sweep Surface tool, and I will bring it up a little ways like that. Hit Validate, select edges, select that edge, and I'm just going to move them down a little bit. I guess I could bring these up a little bit. There we are. Now what I want to do is I want to arrange these buttresses across the face of my building so that they are evenly distributed. Now if you saw my tutorial on creating windows, I cover this subject in that tutorial, but rather than have to find it, I will quickly cover it here. To position this correctly on my building so that I can create duplicates of this and arrange them equally across the front of my building, I need to put this object right here at the far left hand corner. Or I can start at the far right hand corner, but I'm going to do it the far left. So I'm going to use my Snap Align tool, snap that bottom rear corner of that buttress, and now I'm just going to snap my building there, and it puts it flush right up against the corner of my building, and that's what I like. Now I'm going to come over here to Utilities, click on Multiple Copies. Now it wants to create a copy along the x-axis. I don't want that. I want it to create one along the z. So I'm just going to arbitrarily dial in a number for my z-axis for the offset, and 3800 with 6 copies looks to be a little much, so let's bring it down. Maybe I want 5 copies, so I need to stretch this number up a little bit. Now in order for to get all 5 copies arranged perfectly, all I need to do now is just fiddle with this last number here until this buttress is flush against the side of the building. So that's 4.1. That's looks to me like 0.5. We'll put it just about in the right position, maybe a little bit more. 5.2, 5.3. I'm going to go with 5.2. Okay, let me zoom out. And now I've got those buttresses perfectly aligned all across the front of my building. Now I'm not going to arrange them along the back, along the sides of the building. I'll let you do that for yourself. Now we've got one other design element to contend with, and that is these windows up here in the front of the building. So let me hide those. Come back to the building. I'm going to click on Select Faces. I'm going to select that face. I'm going to come up here, copy, paste, and let me hide my building. Now what I want is to arrange little tiny windows all the way across the front. To do that, I'm going to select that edge, come over here to Lines. I'm going to extract that edge. Essentially what it does is make a copy of it. And I'll bring it down here. Let me hide the face of that building. Come over here to Vertex Modeling. I'm going to hit Increase Smoothing a bunch of times, and notice what it does is it tessellates this line by adding a bunch of points to it. And I want to have, you can only click it so many times, and I don't know how many times that is, but you can only click it so many times before it stops working. And when it does, just click your lightning bolt to commit that level of tessellation. And if you want it tessellated more with more points, just click some more. And I think that's a couple steps too much. Let me abort that, undo. I'm adding just a little bit too much. Okay, I like that. Okay, I'm going to re-enable the face, and with that tessellated line selected, I'm going to Control D to duplicate it, and I'm just going to bring it up a little bit so it's offset from my original one. Now what I want to do is, with both of these curves, I want to create a solid surface out of it. So I'm going to come up Surface Modeling, click on Ruled Surface, click on one of my lines, and then click on another one and hit Validate. And now I've got one solid surface. Well, I'm going to select some of those lines, hit Ring, so it selects all the vertical edges. Come up here to Vertex Modeling, Edge Tools. I'm going to click on this first one here, and let me zoom in here a little bit so I can see what effect this tool is going to achieve. And on this green tab here, which is Fillet, I'm just going to select that and start dragging. And let me undo that. Select the first one, select Fillet. There we are. Now I can create a little bit of a divider in between these large polygons so that they will more closely resemble windows. Come up here to Select Faces. I'm not going to select this first one, nor will I select the last one, but I'm going to select all the ones in between without selecting these slender dividers here, because the ones I'm selecting will be my windows. And I'll be right back when I'm done selecting them. Okay, with all my windows selected, I'm going to come up to Extract and extract that from the window dividing polygons, and I don't need that anymore, so I will delete that. Come back and select my windows. Come here to Select Faces. Control A to select all of them. I'm going to use my Sweep Surface tool and hit my space bar and just make it thick like that. Now I'll re-enable the face of my building. I'll bring my windows forward just a little bit. They don't need to be very deep. And now I'm just going to Boolean cut these into my building face, just like that. Select faces. What I want to do is select these windows again. Select faces, select all of them. And I will be right back. Looks like we got a little bit of a design problem here. We missed something. Alright, let's try this again. I think the tool started getting lazy on us. Boolean operation. Oh, look at that. It's just not wanting to create, wouldn't you know it? It's not wanting to create windows here. And that's okay. Undo that. Here's what I'll do. I'll do this in two separate operations. Let me select these edges here. I'm going to hold down Shift, hit the plus button on my keyboard to select all of that, hit F for faces, convert that edge selection to faces, come up here to extract. Okay, now I will select all these holes, all these windows, and I will Boolean cut them into the face of my building. Hit validate. Select this other group, and let's see if we can achieve what it is that we want by doing this in two operations. Let's Boolean cut these into our face. Well, this is just being temperamental. Let's see if we can select these edges here. Select that edge, backspace. Nope, it's not going to allow me to get rid of that one. Backspace. Nope, it's not going to allow me to get rid of that one. Maybe if we delete some of these, we might be able to solve our problem here. No, it's just not playing. It's deciding not to play nice. Let's try cutting it now. There we are. I got what I needed out of it. Alright, now I'm going to select the faces of my windows here, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got all my windows selected. I'm going to come up here to extract. Call this glass. Create a black color for this. I'm going to hide these two objects. Let me re-enable my building. This face here, well, that's the one we duplicated, so we don't need two. So I'll delete that one now. I will re-enable everything. And these little buttresses here are perhaps a little too large. Don't need them cutting into my windows. Okay. So there we are, essentially creating several design elements, all of which can be used in Sci-Fi modeling for Sci-Fi buildings. And we're going to start off with the next tutorial, creating the next building, which is this one right here. And this one I like the most because there's a lot of design considerations that I took into account when I created it, because it'll be perfect for view. It'll work well with any other program, but this one is specifically created for view, because on these flat kind of like observation decks or terraces, we can plant an ecosystem on there, whether it be bushes or trees. So that's why I'm kind of excited about creating, modeling this next one in the next tutorial. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching here at Geekatplay Studios. My name's Gary Miller. Have a good day.